In Dolton, Illinois, political drama is nothing new, but the latest incident involving Mayor Tiffany Henyard has taken the chaos to a whole new level. Known for her controversial leadership and frequent disputes with the village trustees, Henyard has often been the subject of local news coverage. However, what transpired during a recent village board meeting went beyond typical political conflict. It turned into an out-of-control spectacle, one that could rival the most dramatic reality TV show moments. The meeting, which was initially scheduled to take place at Village Hall, was moved to the local Park District building due to the growing crowd of concerned residents. The tensions between Henyard and the village trustees have been escalating for months, with disagreements over everything from appointments to policy decisions. But during this particular meeting, things reached a boiling point. As soon as the meeting began, Henyard immediately disregarded the usual procedures and rules. In a dramatic, almost theatrical display, she attempted to assert her dominance over proceedings, signaling that she was not interested in following the usual order of business. Her actions quickly escalated, and what started as a routine gathering devolved into a chaotic spectacle. The live broadcast of the meeting had to be interrupted, leaving spectators both inside the room and at home in utter shock. The mayor seemed more interested in playing the crowd than addressing the real issues that Dolton was facing. This disregard for the governance process only fueled public doubts about her ability to lead effectively. Henyard's behavior at the meeting painted a vivid picture of a mayor who was more concerned with creating drama than managing the affairs of her town. It was a spectacle that captured the attention of residents, but not in a positive way for months. Tensions had been building between Henyard and the village trustees, but the situation had never reached this level of public spectacle. At the heart of the drama were questionable expenditures made by the mayor that had shocked many members of the community. The mood in the room was tense, and it felt as if everyone knew that something significant was about to happen. Unfortunately, the meeting quickly became less about solving problems and more about the spectacle surrounding Henyard's leadership style. The atmosphere in the room was so charged that many residents, who were initially concerned about the state of town, were more focused on political chaos unfolding before them. With Village Hall unable to accommodate the increasing number of people attending these meetings, the board moved the session to the local Park District building. Although some of the residents were genuinely interested in discussing the future of Dolton, many were drawn to the unfolding drama surrounding the mayor's erratic behavior from the very beginning. Henyard seemed more interested in making a show of power than actually working with the trustees to solve the town's problems. She stormed into the meeting with a sense of defiance, fully aware that her actions would disrupt the proceedings. The meeting, which was supposed to be focused on solving the town's issues, was quickly hijacked by Henyard's desire for attention. Her actions, which seemed to be a deliberate attempt to assert her control over the situation, only served to escalate tensions further as the meeting progressed. It became increasingly clear that Henyard was more interested in creating a spectacle than in governing the town. The chaotic scene was a stark contrast to the orderly meetings that should have been taking place to address the town's issues. Henyard's behavior raised serious questions about her ability to lead Dolton, and many residents began to wonder if she was capable of governing at all. The meeting quickly spiraled out of control, and became evident that Henyard's leadership was only deepening the crisis in Dolton. What had once been a peaceful village was now known more for its political theater than its ability to solve the problems that residents faced. Henyard's controversial leadership was turning the town into a place defined by dysfunction rather than progress. It seemed as though the mayor was more interested in the spectacle of her actions than in finding real solutions to the problems plaguing the town. Her erratic behavior only fueled further doubts about her ability to effectively govern, and residents began to wonder if Dolton could ever move past the political turmoil that Henyard had created. The increasingly dramatic nature of the meetings, combined with Henyard's refusal to follow basic procedures or collaborate with the village trustees, led many residents to question her fitness to serve as mayor. The town's future was in jeopardy, and it seemed as though the mayor's behavior was making it more difficult to resolve any of the issues that caused the political strife in the first place. As the tensions in Dolton continued to build, Henyard's actions only seemed to intensify the chaos. Rather than seeking to foster cooperation or work towards common goals, she appeared more interested in fueling the political drama and playing to her supporters. The town's future seemed to hang in the balance as Henyard's unpredictable behavior pushed the community further into turmoil in a bold and controversial move. Henyard called her meeting at Village Hall, completely disregarding the scheduled session with the trustees at the Park District building. It seemed as though she was trying to assert her dominance and remind everyone that she was still in control, but her plan quickly backfired. Only 2 trustees attended her impromptu gathering. Far from the quorum needed to hold a legal meeting, faced with the embarrassment of her failed meeting, Henyard refused to back down. Instead, she stormed out of her session and drove straight to the Park District building, where the trustees were continuing their meeting without her. What happened next was nothing short dramatic. Henyard barged into the meeting, interrupting the proceedings and stealing the spotlight in an attempt to hijack the attention away from the real business of the meeting. Her unexpected arrival immediately set the room on edge. Tensions flared as she refused to abide by the rules or the authority of the board. Her dramatic entrance and the infamous announcement, "I am the mayor of the village of Dolton," only fueled the growing resentment from the trustees and the audience. The crowd's reaction was unmistakable. Many attendees visibly turned away from Henyard, signaling their disapproval in a glaring and silent show of contempt. This was no longer a simple political disagreement. It was a public spectacle that highlighted the deepening divide within Dolton's political landscape rather than reinforcing her authority. Henyard's actions only served to alienate her further from both the trustees and the residents. Her behavior only reinforced the perception that she was more interested in personal power struggles and public spectacle than in governing the town. The divide between Henyard and the rest of the village government grew wider, and the community was left questioning whether Dolton could ever move past the dysfunction that had become synonymous with Henyard's leadership. Things only worsened when a temporary restraining order was imposed on the mayor, prohibiting her from making certain appointments without the board's approval. This added fuel to the fire, further isolating Henyard from the very government she was supposed to lead. The rift between the mayor and the village trustees became more apparent, and Henyard's actions only seemed to deepen the divide as Henyard stood at the microphone, trying to assert her power in a room not receptive to her claims. The crowd's frustration became palpable. The residents were growing increasingly disillusioned with her leadership, and the divide between Henyard and the rest of the community continued to widen. The mayor's behavior was no longer just an inconvenience. It was a serious threat to the stability and future of the town. What was supposed to be a straightforward meeting had devolved into yet another chapter in Dolton's ongoing saga of political turmoil. Henyard's inability to foster cooperation or resolve the issues at hand had only cemented her place at the center of the drama. The community was left wondering if Dolton could ever move past the chaos, or if Henyard's refusal to cooperate and disregard for the rules would ultimately tear the village apart. As the situation in Dolton continued to deteriorate, it seemed increasingly unlikely that the political chaos surrounding Henyard could be resolved anytime soon. The mayor's refusal to collaborate, her obsession with creating political theater, and her lack of regard for the rules had created a toxic atmosphere that threatened to undo any progress the town had made. With each passing day, it became more clear that Dolton's future was uncertain, and whether Henyard could weather the storm of public discontent remained to be seen. The political drama surrounding Mayor Tiffany Henyard reached a boiling point, leaving the Dolton community questioning how it would all end. Henyard's dramatic declaration, "I am the mayor of the village of Dolton," was immediately drowned out by the loud and visceral response of the crowd, an eruption fueled by anger, frustration, and sheer exhaustion. The locals, who felt ignored and misinformed throughout Henyard's tumultuous tenure, made their discontent known. Her attempt to seize control of the meeting only worsened the situation, with attendees openly questioning her motivations and authority. What should have been a routine trustees meeting quickly turned into a chaotic spectacle with Henyard at the center. Known for her divisive leadership style, Henyard's actions only deepened the rift between her and the very people she claimed to represent. The room quickly became a battleground, with words and gestures reflecting a community desperate for effective leadership and accountability. As Henyard tried to assert her authority, many began to wonder whether reconciliation or resolution was even possible. Given the deepening divisions in Dolton compounding chaos was a temporary restraining order against Henyard, which prohibited her from making certain appointments without board approval. This legal action served as a stark reminder of the widening gap between Henyard and the government she was supposed to lead. The tension reached new heights when Henyard attempted to push through critical appointments, including naming a new police chief. Her words were drowned out by the crowd, who had lost any interest in what she had to say. The room grew more chaotic as Henyard struggled to maintain composure, attempting to declare the meeting illegal to regain control. But the situation spiraled further out of control. Witnesses described the scene as total pandemonium. Henyard tried to dominate the meeting, but her efforts were overpowered by the public's strong opposition. As she loudly declared her intentions to take charge, the crowd's hostility only intensified. Within minutes, Henyard was forced to leave the room after just 7 minutes, marking a humiliating exit as the people she was supposed to serve booed her out. Things took a more dramatic turn when Henyard stormed out of the building, visibly angry at the crowd's rejection. Police officers, who had been stationed nearby in anticipation of potential trouble, quickly intervened to restore order. Rumors soon spread that, enraged by the public humiliation, Henyard had gotten physical with one of the officials present. The chaos continued to unfold as the meeting collapsed into disarray, leading to an unprecedented moment. The arrest of Mayor Tiffany Henyard, her arrest marked the culmination of a meeting that had started with high stakes but ended in complete pandemonium. This shocking turn of events only cemented Henyard's controversial role in Dolton's long-standing political turmoil. What had once been hopeful promises of leadership under Henyard had now been replaced by a community torn apart by conflict and distrust. The arrest was a direct result of the chaos Henyard had incited, showing just how far Dolton's political situation had deteriorated under her leadership. The once promising leadership of Henyard now seemed like a distant memory, and the town was forced to confront the reality of its fractured government. With Henyard's arrest, Dolton seemed to have reached its breaking point. What had been political drama confined to local meetings was now playing out in front of an audience of thousands, and Henyard's inability to govern effectively had led to her eventual downfall. The town was left wondering what the future held, and whether Dolton could ever recover from the deep wounds inflicted by Henry's actions as Henyard was escorted out in handcuffs. The community watched in shock. Once a divisive figure who positioned herself as an untouchable leader, Henyard was now deflated and humiliated. The fallout from the incident left residents reeling, serving as a stark reminder of the deep divisions that had come to define Henyard's controversial tenure. Her attempt to regain control of the narrative was undone by the sheer weight of public dissent. As the meeting devolved into chaos, Henyard's leadership ambitions were dashed by her erratic behavior, and the once powerful mayor, who had built a career on defiance, was forced to confront the aftermath of her actions. The dramatic arrest signaled a significant shift in Dolton's political landscape. Henyard's time in office had alienated her constituents, fractured her leadership, and incited public outrage. Her fall from grace was marked by the public spectacle of her arrest, leaving many to wonder what would become of Dolton and whether the damage caused by her actions could ever be repaired. The absurdity of the situation would forever be etched into the town's history, serving as a harsh reminder of how quickly a leader's power can dissolve when trust is broken and political games overshadow the responsibility of governance. The live feed of the meeting, which had broadcast the entire spectacle, was abruptly cut off when Henyard was taken into custody. The sight of a sitting mayor being dragged out of her meeting in handcuffs seemed more like scripted drama, but it was all too real. To understand the lead-up to this dramatic moment, it's crucial to look at the broader context. This incident was an unexpected event. It was a culmination of months, if not years, of growing tension, chaos, and defiance from Henyard from the very day she took office. Henyard made waves in the Dolton political scene. Her leadership was marked by controversy, from her defiance of established procedures to her confrontational approach with the village trustees. Her leadership style alienated both political opponents and supporters, leading to a constant state of turmoil in Dolton. Her refusal to collaborate with the trustees and her tendency to undermine authority created an environment of dysfunction that pervaded every aspect of town governance. As the months wore on, the political climate in Dolton became increasingly toxic. The villagers, who had once hoped for strong leadership and progress, were now left wondering whether their town could ever recover from the damage caused by Henyard's erratic behavior. The trust between the mayor and the community had been eroded, and the rift between her and the village trustees widened with each passing day. Despite repeated attempts to regain control of the situation, Henyard's actions only served to deepen the divisions within the town. She continually defied the established norms of governance, pushing forward with decisions that were met with widespread resistance. The community, once hopeful for change, had become increasingly disillusioned with Henyard's leadership. By the time of the fateful meeting, it was clear that Henyard's political capital had completely eroded. The meeting itself was just the latest in a series of chaotic episodes that had characterized Henyard's tenure. But this time, the stakes were higher. Henyard was determined to push through important appointments, but the community's anger was palpable. The public's refusal to listen to her or support her agenda left her increasingly isolated. The meeting, which had started with the usual political tensions, quickly escalated into an all-out spectacle. The mayor's inability to regain control of the situation was a clear indication that her political reign was on the verge of collapse. As Henyard was escorted away in handcuffs, it marked the end of an era in Dolton's political history. The town had reached a breaking point, and it was unclear what the future would hold. Could Dolton rebuild after this political chaos? Would a new leader emerge who could restore order and resolve the deep divisions that had festered under Henyard's leadership? For now, the answers were uncertain, but one thing was clear. The fallout from this political spectacle would be felt for years to come. Dolton, Illinois, has found itself at the center of a political maelstrom, largely due to the controversial tenure of Mayor Tiffany Henyard. Throughout her time in office, Henyard's leadership has been marked by defiance, scandal, and escalating tensions between her and the residents she was meant to serve. Her approach to governance, characterized by a series of boundary-pushing decisions, has left many in the community shocked and disillusioned. At the heart of this political drama is Henyard's tendency to disregard established rules and procedures, opting instead to govern on her terms. Regardless of the consequences from the outset, Henyard's leadership was a departure from the norms of Dolton's local government. Known for her boldness, she consistently tested the limits of her authority, often making decisions that ignored the checks and balances of the political system. One of the most controversial aspects of her tenure was her refusal to collaborate with the town's trustees, ignoring the need for cooperation and transparency in governance. Key decisions, such as appointing a new village manager, village attorney, and police chief, were made without the board's approval, bypassing established procedures. These were not minor appointments. They were decisions that had significant implications for the town's governance and public services. The appointment of key officials, including the police chief, became a flashpoint for the growing tensions between Henyard and the board. According to local government procedures, these appointments should have been made in cooperation with the trustees, but Henyard's refusal to involve the board in these decisions was a clear violation of the town's governance norms. Her actions were seen as a direct challenge to the very structure of local government, one that was based on collective decision-making and checks on power. Henyard, however, appeared to believe that the rules did not apply to her. The trustees, who were already frustrated by Henyard's actions, tried to rein in her behavior. They sought to hold her accountable and prevent her from making further unilateral decisions. But Henyard's resistance to their efforts only intensified, and the situation escalated. What had once been a relatively peaceful town was now divided along political lines, with Henyard's bold moves appealing to certain factions of the community while alienating others. Some saw her as a champion of change, a leader willing to break free from the constraints of bureaucracy, while others viewed her as reckless and self-serving, eroding trust in local governance. The community's divisions deepened as Henyard's leadership became increasingly unpredictable. Her refusal to follow basic procedures, disregard for court orders, and constant power struggles with the board only fueled resentment. As tensions rose, it became clear that Henyard's leadership style was incompatible with the needs of Dolton, a town that sought stability and collaboration rather than chaos and confrontation. Her failure to work within the established framework of local government, combined with her increasingly erratic behavior, made it clear that her leadership was spiraling out of control. The breaking point came when Henyard was served with a temporary restraining order, which prohibited her from making certain appointments without the board's approval. This legal action was a significant blow to Henyard's authority, but it did little to quell her defiance. Instead of acknowledging the order and comply with the court's directive, Henyard continued to push the boundaries, determined to demonstrate that she was in control of the town's fate. The restraining order only fueled her sense of injustice, and she increasingly portrayed herself as a victim of a corrupt system, rallying her supporters on social media with cries of solidarity and resistance. As the political crisis in Dolton continued to unfold, Henyard's rhetoric grew more combative. She cast herself as a hero in a battle against the political establishment that she claimed was out to get her. Her posts on social media, including one where she called on her black sheep supporters to stand by her, painted a picture of a mayor fighting an unfair system. In her eyes, the trustees were the enemy, and she was their rightful adversary. But this siege mentality only pushed Henyard further away from the broader community. By portraying herself as a victim of an unjust system, she alienated potential allies who may have once supported her and continued to fuel the growing discontent within Dolton. At the same time, rumors of financial mismanagement began to surface. Whispers of Henyard's alleged misappropriation of public funds, along with reports of extravagant spending and questionable taxpayer-funded travel, cast a dark shadow over her leadership. Despite mounting allegations, Henyard maintained a defiant stance, dismissing the accusations as baseless attacks from her political enemies. She even suggested that the allegations were part of a smear campaign designed to undermine her authority. But as the rumors swirled and the evidence piled up, it became increasingly difficult to dismiss the claims as mere political attacks. Among the most damaging rumors were reports of Henyard's alleged misuse of public funds. Leaked documents revealed thousands of dollars spent on lavish travel and accommodations, with no clear purpose or justification for the expenditures. The extravagant spending was particularly concerning given the town's financial struggles, and many residents began to question whether Henyard was prioritizing her interests over the welfare of the people she was supposed to serve. The fact that these expenditures were allegedly funded by taxpayer dollars only added to the growing sense of betrayal among the people of Dolton. The growing scrutiny of Henyard's financial dealings coincided with mounting legal pressures. The FBI, along with other federal and state agencies, began investigating her actions, signaling that the situation in Dolton was escalating far beyond what anyone could have anticipated. The investigation into Henyard's financial mismanagement was now in the hands of multiple authorities, and the public was left to wonder how deep the corruption went. As the investigation continued, more documents were leaked, and more questions arose about Henyard's use of public funds for personal gain amid this chaos. Henyard continued to present herself as the mayor of the people. Despite the mounting legal and financial pressures, she maintained a small base of supporters who rallied behind her. On social media, she painted herself as a victim of a corrupt system, and she seemed determined to fight on. However, even her supporters began to question her leadership. Some pointed to her previous criminal history, including an arrest for car burglary in 2016, as evidence that Henyard was a problematic figure with a history of legal issues. While the details of her past legal troubles are difficult to verify, the allegations against her continue to tarnish her reputation. The tipping point came when Henyard, unable to call her meeting due to lack of a quorum, stormed into a trustees' meeting at the Park District building. Her uninvited entrance immediately threw proceedings into disarray, turning what should have been a productive session into another spectacle of chaos. Henyard's refusal to follow basic rules and her blatant disregard for protocol only deepened the growing contempt for her leadership. The trustees, who had long been at odds with her, were now openly exasperated by her antics, and the residents of Dolton were left to witness the disintegration of their town's governance at the meeting. The crowd's frustration reached a boiling point. Loud boos, shouts, and even the throwing of objects marked Henyard's dramatic entrance. Her insistence on making key appointments without following the proper legal processes only aggravated the already palpable tension. The crowd's rejection of her was unmistakable, and Henyard's attempts to maintain control only further alienated the very people she was supposed to lead. What was meant to be a productive town meeting quickly devolved into chaos, and Henyard's inability to work with others became abundantly clear. The residents of Dolton, once hopeful for progress under Henyard's leadership, now found themselves grappling with the consequences of her divisive, disruptive behavior. The town's political system was in shambles, and it was evident that Henry's leadership was no longer tenable. The trust between her and the community had evaporated, and the chaos she caused only highlighted how quickly a leader's authority could unravel when they failed to listen to the people they serve in the wake of the meeting. Henyard's political future seemed increasingly uncertain. Despite her vocal insistence on being a champion of the people, her actions had left Dolton in political turmoil. The town was now faced with a leadership vacuum, unsure of what the future held. Would Dolton recover from the damage caused by Henyard's reign of defiance, or had the wound she inflicted on the town's governance been too deep to heal? As Henyard's legal and financial problems mounted, it became clear that her political career was in jeopardy. The growing public outrage, coupled with investigations into her financial mismanagement, made it difficult to see how she could survive the mounting pressure. Henyard continued to fight on, but with every new revelation, her credibility took another hit. The people of Dolton were fed up with her power struggles, and the trustees were tired of her antics. Even the courts had intervened, serving her with a restraining order that prohibited her from making certain decisions without the board's approval. But Henyard refused to relent, continuing to push boundaries and defy authority at every turn. The question now facing Dolton is whether Henyard will be able to turn things around, or if her political career has reached a point of no return. The evidence against her is undeniable, and the public's patience is wearing thin. With mounting legal challenges and growing discontent from the residents of Dolton, Henyard's future as a leader is uncertain. As the town continues to grapple with the fallout from her actions, it is clear that the drama surrounding her leadership is far from over. The people of Dolton are watching closely, and the next chapter in this political saga will undoubtedly shape the future of the town for years to come.